Hey, hey, welcome to the Breakthrough interview series. I'm Meg Church, a relationship repair coach and self-sabotage slayer. And I'm having this series because I think there's a misconception that success happens overnight because we live in an instantaneous, microwavable society. And I want to break through that and have amazing people that I love and admire on here, like Leanna, who I'm about to introduce, to share their stories and share how they had their breakthroughs and what they had to truly do to get to the other side and who they're becoming now. So I want to introduce Leanna onto the show. And Leanna, just go ahead and introduce yourself, what you do, what you're passionate about before we get into the battles.
All right. Thanks, Meg. I'm Leanna Croman, and I am a vice president of culture and learning. And it's a very long road to get there. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that position is and how I got to there. But that is my passion is people, their development, their behaviors. Watching people grow is probably one of the most exciting things to me. So that is definitely my passion of being just a people person.
And so Leanna and I met in the restaurant industry. I think the first time we ever did talk, we actually went deep, as we were just talking about that earlier. It was all Brene Brown, soulful stuff. It wasn't the small talk. So we've had a connection from day one, which was 5 years ago, I think. Yeah, 5.5 years ago. So all right, so now we're going to get into the battles. And so much of this is fun because I know so much about Leanna, but she's also going to share all kinds of stuff. And so, again, people think that things happen overnight. They don't see the battles. They don't see the trenches that you're in trying to dig your way out, especially when you've been in dark places, and then what that did to help get you to where you are now. So I want you to go deep dive into your battles.
All right. Well, in order to go deep dive, I'm going to take you guys a little farther back. Okay. So I grew up very religious, extremely religious. I was a minister in my own church. My church did not like my lifestyle at all. They were against who I was as a person. And you want to talk about a battle and an inner struggle. Everything that I taught and everything that I had been taught from a small child up until I was 22 was you have to be in the church, you have to marry a man, and this is going to be your life. And when you are struggling with when you're questioning how you love, it makes you question your entire life. Mm-hmm. And I really did fight against every single thing because I looked at the way that I loved as wrong. Mm-hmm. When you're fighting against your own internal instincts, you want to talk about the battle that went in there. I mean, there were many times that I contemplated ending my own life because I couldn't make anyone around me happy. And I thought that I was failing God. Mm-hmm. So my struggle there is I thought that I decided to leave the church, and I thought that I couldn't have a relationship with God because everything that I had related, everything that I knew in my entire life was, if you like the same sex, you're going to hell. That was it. That's what it was about. And so I didn't know what I was going to do. I fasted and prayed and tried to do everything and fought against my entire self, who I was as a person. And the day that I decided that I was going to change how I was looking at life in general was the day that my dad passed away. And when my father passed away, he knew about my lifestyle, and he had told me, whatever makes you happy. And that seems so cliche, but it's the truth. You have to tap into what really gives you peace. It's not really a happiness. It's the peace, because happiness is controlled by outer circumstances, right? The peace that comes within of knowing, and that's the difference. It's peace. When you have peace, it's a sense of knowing. I knew that I was okay. I knew that the way I loved was still love, that there was nothing wrong with that. But if I wouldn't have gone through that battle of figuring out who I was at that age of 22 and being able to step out away from my family, away from every single thing that I knew, and to become who I was, it kind of started me on the right way of thinking. But I had to go through a retraining of every single thing that I had ever been taught as a child.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the real struggle that people, no matter what it is, whatever you're fighting against, the real struggle comes with how you were raised, how you were taught, all these things. And it's a conditioning of the mind.
Mm-hmm.
And it is hard to recondition the way that you think, but it is possible. Mm-hmm. My mom was one of the most negative people that I've ever been around. If you know me, you know I'm a very positive person. Okay. But growing up for years, it was negative, negative, negative. No matter what the situation was, this is why it can't happen. This is why you can't do it. Mm-hmm. And I remember one time, this was years ago, I had somebody tell me, they're like, wow, you sound just like your mom. And that was a day that I was like, I don't ever want to be that negative. I want to be a positive person. And so I had to work at it. Someone would ask me a question and my first response would be negative. And I would stop and I would actually say to them, I'm sorry, I'm working on being a positive person. And what I said was just negative. So you have to bring awareness to what you're trying to change. You have to verbalize it. You have to let somebody else know, or you'll never be held accountable. And so you have to have people in your life that say, hey, I'm trying to overcome this. Mm-hmm. If you have a problem with lying and whatever it is, right? You have to admit it to somebody and say, this is my goal. And then not be afraid to say, this is what I'm trying to overcome. Mm-hmm. When you speak those things into existence, when you feel powerful enough to say, hey, I've taken my own life in control and this is what I want to change. And you speak those things into existence, you can make the change. Yep. It took years for me to retrain my mind to not think of the first thing as negative, but to think as the first thing as positive. Mm-hmm. And it is possible. In every single review that I have had for 13 years working at Hughes Culinary, they tell me that I'm the most positive person that is in our company. That is an achievement because I knew where I came from and I knew how negative of a background that I grew up in. Mm-hmm. So, and it is possible with the right discipline and that right set for your mind.
Mm-hmm. Well, first off, I know how much your dad meant to you. I never knew that was the day everything changed. It's kind of like a lotus flower, how it grows out of the darkness. That's such like a blossoming, becoming time, despite it being a dark time for you.
Yeah. That is and that's a beautiful analogy. I mean, it is very true. The most beautiful things sometimes are covered, right? Mm-hmm. They're completely, and you got to dig at them. You have to push through. You have to strive. I tell people all the time, getting to the top, right? If you're growing somewhere, if there's a goal for you, if there's an achievement that you want and you see that as being at the top of the mountain, there is no quick way to get there, just like you started out, right? Mm-hmm. There's not an elevator ride that you can take. I mean, there is. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of cheap ways to do things. There's a lot that last. Matter of fact, if you take the elevator to the top of the mountain instead of climb it, you cannot handle what you get when you get up to the top of the mountain. You didn't work hard. You didn't go through the exercises. You didn't struggle. You didn't try. So when you get to the top of the mountain, the air's so thin up there, your body hasn't adjusted. You can't breathe and you don't get to enjoy the beautiful sight. Mm-hmm. Probably fall out and fall off the mountain. That's the reality, right?
Yep.
But if you do the work, right? If you go through the struggle, it is so true that when you get there, not only can you handle it, you appreciate it, and you're able to show somebody else how to get there. You're able to make it actually easier for the next person because you carved into the mountain your handholds and your footholds as you begin to walk up that mountain. Mm-hmm. And that is what life is really about. It is, yes, it's a struggle, but you also get to make it a little bit easier for the next person who's coming up behind you. That's what this life is about. It's not being selfish. It's not just about us. It is also about reaching down to the person who you see is struggling and saying, I've been exactly where you're at. And let me show you how I got here. And let me help you and guide you to get here as well.
And that's what it is. It's like infusing someone else with just a little bit of hope. Like that, sometimes that's all you need is just like a little bit of hope or that smile or that energy or whatever to say, you know what, this isn't going to be like this forever. You're going to pass through this. This too shall pass, but it's going to be so much better on the other side.
I'm glad you mentioned the word hope because that is what I hold on to. That is what has gotten me to where I'm at. I don't care how bad it's been. I don't care how dark it's been. That is the thing that pulls me out every single time is because I do believe I've always believed it will be better. It will get better because, again, my father was the person who always said that to me. He always said, it'll be okay. Call me Nanner. Nanner, it'll be all right. We'll get through this. It'll be okay, no matter what it was. And we went through a lot of struggles. We were really poor when I was growing up. We didn't have food. We stood in line, at the food bank. People made fun of me. I mean, I went through all of that growing up. My dad always said it was going to be okay. It was going to be all right, no matter what. My mom, it was the end of the world. It was doom and gloom. But my dad was always like, hey, it's going to be okay. We're going to make it through this. We're going to get through this. And I feel like when I talk to people, that's what it is they have no hope. They don't know how to see anything but the end. They have no idea how to look at something else. And if you can spark a little bit, because hope is not one of those things. Hope is not like faith, okay? And a lot of people confuse them, and they want to say that those things are the same thing, but they're not. Faith is totally different. I mean, faith is a belief in something that doesn't even exist, and you're calling that into existence. That's some real power there, and that's amazing and awesome, and I think faith is fantastic. But that is not the same thing as hope. Hope is something that actually is learned. Hope is something that is taught. That is a skill that is measurable, that you can actually teach somebody else, is how to hope, it's having that courage to be able to say, aha, I know that things are going to get better. And you can inspire hope in people. You can encourage people. They all have it there. It's just kind of laying dormant. Like you said, it's like that lotus flower that's under the mud. Sometimes it just takes a big rain, right? Wash it all away.
Yep.
And you realize, wow, look at this. And sometimes you got to pull that out of people. I find that that's what I'd probably do the best, is I look at people that maybe nobody else wants to give a chance to. Right? People who everybody else has passed on. Yep. And I see something in them. And I know that with the right encouragement, with the right leadership and guidance, we can get them somewhere. I just need them to believe in themselves. I need them to see what I see. Sometimes it's really difficult because, again, of how they were raised, right? If they were raised with a parents or family members or whoever it was that raised them, that told them they were never going to amount to anything, it is really hard to teach them that they can amount to something. But it is possible. But it takes work, right? It takes that every day checking in with that person and letting them know, and not being afraid when you are guiding somebody, when you're helping someone to grow. You can't be afraid to point out bad things because they've had a bad life. Yep. That's where I think a lot of people make mistakes, right? They're not open and honest enough in their relationships. They're not open and honest enough in their friendships with people to say, hey, this isn't okay. I love you. And I think you're doing a really great job at this, but this right here isn't okay. You got to stop this behavior because this is going to lead to something else. And I think that, again, the reason why I have some of the respect that I do from the people that I have helped is because I've been honest with them, really honest. And you don't have to be cruel. You don't have to be condescending. Honesty is something that should come with love. Be honest with someone if you can't say it out of love.
Yep.
So that attitude, I've been around people where they're like, oh, I tell people, I let them know. Yeah, but the tone that you let them know,
that work.
Humiliated. Instead of pulling them aside and say, hey, I care so much about you, and this behavior right here is going to stop you from getting to where you want to get to. Let's work on this together. Let's talk about how you can not have these things, these outbursts and this anger that I keep seeing in you. Right? But you have to be honest enough to have that conversation, and it's not easy to do. But when you do it out of love, you'll find that people are way more receptive. Yep. Don't embarrass people, right? Don't humiliate them. We were talking, a group of coworkers was talking the other night, and they were talking about a management style of somebody who everybody respects, or everybody, they have the respect of their team, but yet, they can be really angry at times, and they can yell, and they can, have fits and throw things and whatever. And they're like, but people do respect them, or they do love them. They would do anything for them. And I said, I'm never going to excuse that.
Yep.
Those things shouldn't go hand in hand. I said, and you know, I wasn't trying to pin a rose on my chest, but I said, I've been with this organization for 13 years. Have you ever seen that behavior out of me?
Mm-hmm.
Didn't mean that I wasn't angry. It doesn't mean that I don't have a moment where I'm frustrated or that something is really bothering me, but to allow yourself to get to a place to where you humiliate other people and treat other people with disrespect, it should never be allowed in the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
There is a way to handle situations. There is a way to talk to people. And if you can't control yourself, you cannot control anything else around you.
Well, usually, and you know this too, usually that comes from a place of their own insecurity, that they feel like if they don't raise their voice or show their power or show whatever, I know we've had conversations about this, then they're not going to be respected. They're not going to be heard. They're not going to be listened to, and they're not going to get the desired result. It's not how it works. Like, no.
Yeah. And that's a trained behavior. That's something they either seen from their father or from their old bosses or how that's what they've noticed. And it was, I will tell you, it was acceptable at some point in the workplace for people to act that way, for people to act like a bully. I'll just bring it up, right?
Yep.
For people to bully other people into getting them to do what they want to do. And it was accepted. It was accepted to watch somebody, again, raise their voice. I tell any person who I work with, whether you are above me or below me, it doesn't really matter. I hate the term below me because in my opinion, we're all just the same, right? We have positions that may afford us accountabilities and responsibilities, but we're all on the same page. But when I look at my coworkers, I mean, that's one of the first things that I'll tell you. If I'm going to work with you, here's how it's going to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can be upset with me. You can be disappointed in me. And we can have those conversations, but you will not raise your voice at me. You will not curse at me. And you have to set those early on. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing wrong with making sure that your voice is heard. And I will tell you this, if you're in a situation and your boss does treat you that way and you've allowed it, it's okay to fix it now.
Yep.
Okay. It is okay to walk in there and say, I've been struggling with something for a long time. It's the way that you talk to me. It's your tone. I appreciate all these other things. I love working for you, except for this aspect. Yep. This is something that really bothers me. When you're upset with me, when you're disappointed in me, maybe you need to take some time before you have a conversation with me. Mm-hmm. But this is how I want it to be moving forward, because it doesn't make me feel comfortable. It makes me feel belittled and humiliated. And then all it's doing between us is building resentment, and I'm losing respect for you. Mm-hmm. Have that conversation with them, and they either change or you'll end up realizing, because you're speaking your truth, that you're in the wrong place.
Yep. So how did you so I'm going to give them a little background with you, but I want you to go through how you broke up with the bully, because, you know, you had humble beginnings. You had in the workplace too. And that's something that so many people, when they see where you're at now, they're like, well, you know, if they don't know your story, they didn't know that you worked as a server assistant. They didn't know that I think you did dishes too.
Every position, really.
And then you just kept showing up, doing your best at whatever it was, and then boom. And it's going to continue to keep elevating the more that you do that kind of thing. So how did you break up with that inner bully as you were combating people pleasing? Because that's essentially what it was.
It is. And I'll tell you, the biggest voice is your own, right? Yep. So that inner monologue that tells you that if you take this position, it doesn't mean anything, right? That you're not enough. I mean, I went from, I worked for a company where I had 500 employees. I ran that company, and I went from that to, again, serving, right? So I took a server position, waiting on another opportunity. And it was hard. It was so hard to humble yourself, right? To say, but I will tell you, I was frustrated with the corporate world. Mm-hmm. I was frustrated with working for people, putting in 75, 80 hours a week, and not being appreciated. You know, it was just being on call all the time. I was just worn out. I was exhausted, and I just wanted to change. You know, I just needed something. But man, I'm going to tell you, every single day it was, wow, I can't believe that you're serving, right? I can't believe that you're doing this. And it was a constant battle of, what are people going to think of me? Matter of fact, when someone would ask me what I did for a living, I didn't want to say. I'm
Mm-hmm.
a server. And you know what? It's awful, right? That we allow that kind of shame to creep in and to talk us out of being happy. I was so happy as a server. Let me just tell you. Okay. Well, number one, I made more money as a server than most people make in their jobs that they've spent, 6, 8 years in a degree. So please understand that it is a real job. I'd like to say that for the record. Okay, serving and bartending, and I don't care what job it is in the kitchen, it's a real job. Okay, they work their butts off and they make real money, and they're not a servant. Okay, they are doing a job and they're doing it willingly, and it's a way for people to engage and for them to make a living. And so I really struggled with that, and it was. And I almost gave up. I will tell you, there were times that I almost gave up and went back to a different type of job because of the title, right? Because I was struggling with that. Mm-hmm. And it is, right? You have to be okay with how people look at you and what people think, because again, you have to be okay with how you look at yourself and what you think. And when you are okay with you, it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks.
Yep.
And the older you get, I will tell you, the older you get, you do understand that more. And I think the reason why that is, it's not just because of experience, but that is the most important piece of that, is because you do go through something. It's like a muscle that you exercise, right? When it's small and you don't know, and you have to work it out and you can only do 2 pounds. I mean, that's what it is. And you build it up. Well, it's kind of the same way when you're battling the bully and shame and all these things that you fight with, right? When you get stronger and you understand, and you also see the way that it creeps in, you recognize it for what it is. And I think that's really important, is once you recognize what that bully looks like, and then it doesn't matter where it shows up in your life, right? It doesn't matter if it's work, it doesn't matter if it's home, it doesn't matter if it's in a relationship, you recognize, that seems so familiar to me. I understand what this is. And you can stop it at some small point, right? Instead of allowing it to go on and to grow, you can stop it. But you have to be able to recognize it. And I think one of the things that I have always loved about you and what you're doing right now is you're trying to show people how to recognize, because that is the first thing that you've got to do, is spot what that bully looks like. You've got to be able to put a name on it. You've got to be able to know what it looks like inside of you, and that voice in your head, that feeling of not being enough, right? Mm-hmm. That's a bully. That's a shame bully that you don't have to listen to. Yep. Because the reality is that you are. Mm-hmm. You are enough. No matter where you're at, no matter what it is, you're put on this earth for a reason. And even if you don't know what that is today, you can find it. Mm-hmm. But just knowing that there's, again, having that hope that you're here for more than just yourself. You're here more for a greater purpose. Mm-hmm. That seed right there, when you plant that seed, that I'm here for something more than myself. I tell people who are depressed, I tell people who are going through a struggle, the very best thing that you can do for yourself is go help somebody else.
It's so, like, when you said that earlier, that's exactly what I was thinking in my head, because, for me, and I think you know this, when I had to go back into serving, at first I felt shame. I felt embarrassment. I felt like I had done this in college. I didn't want to go back down this route, but I was at a spot where I knew I needed to listen to me and my emotions and the darkness that I felt from losing my dad unexpectedly. I didn't feel like I could function the way I had in the realm that I needed to be on point. And so as I started serving, it was such a beautiful thing to know I was healing at the same time as serving. And when you serve other people, it takes you out of yourself. It takes you out of your own head, out of your own struggles, and you give to someone else, and that can elicit that hope inside of you and that little bit of momentum to keep working through whatever it is you're facing. Service is everything.
It really is. I mean, I've dealt with people who had severe depression and they didn't know how to get out of the situation. And some of these people were truly contemplating suicide. And they're like, I don't know what to do today. I said, well, here's what you're going to do today. Today, you're going to go help somebody else. Today, you're going to go volunteer down at the shelter. Today, you're going to go down to, the Humane Society and clean up poop. Today, you're going to, right? You're going to do something unselfish because it gives you a purpose, right? There's something that it is actually a selfish act to volunteer. I will tell you. And this is why I say that, because what it does for you.
Yep.
Yes, you're helping somebody else, but you know how that makes you feel when you're helping the little old lady out of the restaurant and you're putting her bags in her car and you're helping her and she turns around and says, thank you so much. I mean, there is something that comes over you, right? You just did a good deed. That feels amazing. And we need that, right? Because at that point, we probably have no serotonin in our levels in our brain, right? When we're that depressed, when we're really down, when we're really dark and we're struggling. And these are the things that add immediate connection to that. That's what fires your brain. That's what starts connecting you back to humanity, is by doing something for somebody else. And so I always tell people, when you are in your darkest place, when you are struggling, go do something for somebody else. Go volunteer somewhere, go take care of something, write a note to somebody, do something else to encourage somebody else. It will help you in more ways than you ever imagined.
Well, and I think another misconception too along that line is how once you have kind of overcome and had your breakthroughs in that area, that it doesn't ever creep back, or that you never go through something. I think it can come at you even louder and harder and stronger, as they say, like getting to new levels, new devils.
That's
but
right.
That whole thing where you catch it and maybe it starts to look a little bit different and you got to pull out more strings or you got to lift more weights in order to combat that. Like you're still away, or you learn your to lean on your network of people, or to have that one person or whatever it is for your way, but it doesn't go away. You just catch it a little bit sooner. Sometimes you don't always catch it. Sometimes it starts getting too dark and you're like, oh yeah,
it can disguise itself. There's no doubt about that. And I agree with you. The farther up you go, it's going to look a little bit different. It's the same. They're bigger, they're uglier, they're nastier, right? And again, you have to arm yourself, right? You have to support yourself with a network of people. It's so silly that people try to do everything on their own. I think it's one of the silliest things I've ever heard of in my life. And I will tell you that the people who are successful are not people who did it by themselves. There are people who surround themselves with other greatness, with other people, and you got to have it on both levels, right? And again, you got to have the people that you're helping, and you got to have the people that are helping you. And if you don't have that network in your life of both of those things, you're out of balance. There's no doubt about it. You have to, if you want to get to the next level, then you should be friends and rubbing elbows with the people that are on the next level. At the same time, you should also be helping somebody who is on the level below you to try to come up to where you're at, right? There has to be both, because you need both to be at balance. Because if you just are striving to go up and never to help anybody else, you're selfish. And that's what the bully changes, right? It changes its robes and it disguises itself as something else. And you don't see it as much. You think it's power and success and all of that. Well, that also comes with its own issues, and you become selfish and self-absorbed. And this drive that you see sometimes in people where they're just going and going and doing everything for themselves. They're a slave to themselves. They don't realize that they're trapped, that they don't have the same freedom, right? I can't do this. I don't have any time for my kids. I don't have any time for this. I don't have any time for my relationship because it's my job or it's my career. And this is what I got to do. That's a problem. There has to be a balance of life. Life is that series of breath, right? There are times that you're holding it in. There are times that you feel like you can't breathe. There are times that you let it out and it feels amazing, but you have to do both. Either one that you do, whether you're exhaling or inhaling, if you're only doing one, you're going to die. That's the reality.
Don't hold your breath,
right? It's the truth. But people forget. They forget that that's the way that life is. that you have to have both. I tell people all the time, just breathe. And I mean that more than just the actual air that we are taking into our lungs. It is just that stop and pause for a moment and say, okay, well, let me regroup, right? People don't do it enough. They just go plow in with no plan, with nothing. You got to have a plan. It is okay to sit down and plan your life. It is okay to sit down and say, this is what I want, right? To have a vision board, to think of things that you want to do in your life. It is okay to have those. And it is also okay if you never do those things. Because you're going to change the things that you see. And that is the wonderful thing about food, okay? I might have only ever loved pizza if that was all I ever ate.
Yep.
If that was the only thing that was introduced to me, I would tell you that pizza was my favorite food and that's all I ever loved. But that's not even close to being this. I love all kinds of food. And people ask me all the time, well, what about this? I've never tried it. So I don't know if I would like it or not, right? But I'm going to try it because I love to try all types of things.
Yep.
But it's a variety, right? They say that's the spice of life. It's the truth. So you may not know what your real interest is because you may not have ever even tried it.
Yep.
You may not have ever stepped out, giving yourself the permission. We're so afraid of what everybody thinks, right? We're so afraid of what they're, and let me tell you, I mean, this may come as a shocker, but people aren't thinking about you. Okay. I just want to go ahead and put that out there. Most people, what are you thinking about, right?
Yep.
What are you thinking about? You're thinking about yourself. You're thinking about the things that are close to you. You're thinking, people are not sitting around thinking about you. Sure, there are busybodies. Sure, there are people that are going to talk and whatever. That means nothing. Trust me, it means nothing. In your life, the people who run their mouth or people who work, that means nothing.
Yep.
It means nothing. They should never be given a seat at the table. Never. The seat at the table should be reserved for the people that are close to you, people who are going to be honest with you. You're at the head of your table. You should always be at the head of your table, right? I've told you before, you know, when I'm struggling the most, I physically sit down at my kitchen table, and I'm not kidding. And I look at each seat around the table, and they're empty, and I give them, and I know y'all are going to think this is crazy, but I give them a name of my emotions of what I'm feeling. So if I'm feeling fear, if I'm feeling, you know, pain, I put them around my table, but I also have to remember that I have to give place for other things, even the emotions I'm not feeling. So I got to make sure that I've got love there. I've got to make sure I've got joy there. I've got to make sure I've got other things there besides just the dark pain that I'm dealing with, right? Yes. And I let everybody talk. I want everybody to, and that may sound crazy to you, but it's the truth, right? Because the way that you balance yourself, it's the way that you get in touch with yourself and say, where am I at right now? Why am I struggling with this? Oh, jealousy. That's what I'm dealing with right now. Okay. So let's talk about this. And how am I, what am I so worried about? What is the struggle? Right. And I have that inner dialogue with myself. I'll write it out. I'll talk about it, whatever it is. But guess what? I don't put those emotions at the head of my table. They don't get to take up the entire operation, right? They don't get to talk the entire time.
Yep.
Make sure that there's time for everyone. I'm in control of my life. You have to be in control. So yeah, you're going to experience emotions. You're going to experience feelings. You're going to have that bully that's having those conversations. Fine. Have them right back. Have the conversation. Know that you're in control, right? And it is so important that you take control of your emotions.
Yep.
When we allow that constant, I went to this talk show one time. This lady, she was a neuroscientist, and this was really fascinating. And she talked about like how long that it takes for us to take a thought in and then allow it to go all the way through our body and release that thought, right? And she said it truly takes about 45 seconds for you to process a full thought, right? So I'm mad, I'm angry about the situation, right? So I think about what just happened, I allow it to go through. You want to know why we stay mad? Because we keep replaying that same situation over and over and over and over and over again. If we actually took in that emotion, said, okay, I'm mad, I'm totally ticked off right now, here's why. And then if we decided to think about something else, if we actually forced ourselves to think about something else, our feelings would change. Our emotion would change. Have the ability to stop and pause, allow ourselves to feel the emotion when it comes in, and then let it go.
Yep.
Let it go. But we don't. We replay it over and over and over. So we stay angry, we stay upset, we stay hurt, and we don't have to. We are hurting ourselves. That bully is the replay.
Yep. Oh, and that's why so many times that bully is the replay of all the things that have ever hurt us in our life. They're not saying those things anymore. The person might not even be alive anymore, but you still are playing that album like it's #1 hit over and over and over again. And I think that those things are tangible things that people can take into consideration. And it's so crazy how much the whole people-pleasing thing can truly rob us of our lives. So when you get back into alignment with you and what God has in store for you and your gifts and talents, and you quit comparing yourself to other people, quit letting their opinions dictate your next move. Quit letting that be a validation for who you are, especially when those people are not going to be in your life in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's one of the biggest things. Like, we could do so much more if we not only quit the recording or catch it when it starts, but quit giving people's opinions so much power over our next move.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think that that's something that you've done so great at over this whole process of you becoming the Leanna that you are now. And I guess I want you to share, what do you see yourself becoming now, like in the future? And any last little bits of advice for people on their journey of becoming?
So, I mean, you know, on this where I'm headed now in my life, you know, it's definitely been an interesting road. And I will give a lot of recognition and props to the company that I work for, because they also saw something in me that I didn't even realize. You know, Craig gave me a job and a title of something that we had never even had in our entire company, because he knew that this is something that we needed, right? So my role as the vice president of culture and learning, the whole goal there is to try to continue to drive our culture. And one of the things that we did this past year is we really dove into our culture and tried to figure out, like, what makes us who we are? What are the behaviors? Because they're not things, right? They're really behaviors. That's what drives culture.
Yep.
And so, and what I see now is I've not only taken what I've learned through my career, and but I've also used that with people on a regular basis, you know, and I've done a lot of coaching and developing. This last year during COVID, you know, we started kind of like diving in through Brene Brown's book. Yeah, and it was awesome. And we had a small group of us that got together every single week, and the effects of that, I still get text messages and phone calls from those individuals who went through this series with me, and they would say, this changed my life. One person completely got sober through this whole process and been sober for 173 days.
Wow.
Pretty amazing, right? The effect, and that's the kind of impact that I want to have on people's lives, right? I want to be able to create a safe space for people to truly unload, for people to truly talk, where there is no judging, right? We don't compare. And I will stop people on my calls from comparing, because that is the thing that will take down an entire network of people, is when you allow people to start comparing with other people, even with them themselves. So we will stop that kind of behavior. And so one of the things that I think is for my future, wherever it goes and whatever it is to, again, to no matter what if it's just one-on-one, if it's me and 10 people, if it's me and 100 people, is I want to create a space where people can feel that they can have a conversation, where an honest, true, honest conversation, where when we leave from that conversation, we might feel a little raw, but we've grown. Right? We have some direction. There's a sense of hope. I want to inspire that sense of hope in every single person that I have contact with every single day. When I'm on my way to work, I always think, what can I do today? That's going to inspire somebody. And I'll tell you, she started out, we talked about small talk earlier. I mean, I don't do small talk. Okay. So if I'm going to have a conversation with you, we're probably going to get right down to the nitty gritty. We're probably going to get into a deep conversation. But that's the kind of impact that I want to have on people. I don't want to waste my words. I don't want to sit and have a 10-minute conversation about what color of scarf you should wear. I want to talk about what's in your heart. I want to talk about what you need. That's just the truth, right? And it's okay to have, I'm not saying that you can't have small talk conversations with people in everyday life. It's just probably not going to be with me. Yes. I'm going to probably go right through and get right to the good stuff, but that's just where I'm at. And that's what I see for my life, is to continue to try to inspire everyone around me and to encourage people. And that has opened up lots of doors. It's opened doors for me to speak. Before COVID, I had a lot of things on the kind of an agenda for me to speak at larger events and stuff. And I was really excited about that. And I know we'll get back to there. But that's really the goal for me, is really just to inspire and encourage and to lift up people, because there's a lot of other things out there, a lot of negativity, and this is what we need. And my last little bit of advice I will tell you. So I've been drinking out of this cup. This cup will get well soon, by the way. I'm not sick, but I love this cup. I love it because somebody gave this to me. I had surgery about a month ago, and they sent this to me, and it came after my surgery. I was already better. Okay. And I thought, well, I'm not going to, that's silly, but this is the small little things that we have to recognize in us, right? Oh, I can't use a Christmas cup unless it's Christmas. I can't do. Who says that? Where's all these? They say I can't wear white pants after Labor Day. Let me tell you, I wear white pants all year long. Okay. I'm gonna tell you, because I'm not going to let some they dictate my life, or anyone tell me how I'm going to wear my hair or what kind of clothes I'm going to wear. I do what I want to do, right? And so I'm going to drink out of this get well soon anytime I want to. And it actually makes me feel happy. I actually feel like I want to get well, right? Every single day. But it did. I was like, no, I like this cup, and the people that gave this to me are amazing people. And so I'm going to think about them, and I'm going to drink out of this cup. And I don't need to be sick to drink out of that cup.
Yeah, you're going to keep your immune system up all the time.
All the time. So quit listening to what the that's out there, right? Make your own set of rules. This is your life, and we got one of them, and that's it.
Leanna, you're so awesome. When I say she is a service-minded person, if you didn't already get that in this, for real, her heart was made to serve and to leave that legacy of love. I love the whole love legacy. That's like a thing of mine. And to just make your mark on the world. You already are. And I know how many people you've impacted. I know the words that people speak of you that are always so awesome, because it's who you are. And I'm so glad that you made that commitment to yourself when your dad passed away, to show up and live your life. So
thank you.
I love you.
I love you.
Thank you so much for being on here. I really appreciate you taking the time out. And guys, check her out, follow her, go eat at all the restaurants, Hughes Culinary, whoop whoop. And until next time, we'll see you later.